Welcome everyone to episode 9 of the PwC Tech Talks, first episode of 2024. Great to have you all back, and for those who are joining us for the first time, these are primarily streamed on LinkedIn, but they're also going out to X as well, formerly known as Twitter. And today we're going to be talking to you about the Essential 8. What are they? What do they mean? How important are they for business? And Alex and I are joined by Darshan, Chandarana and Scott Likens, and we'll do intros in a second. The important thing to remember is that the way these tech talks run is we are very keen on audience interaction. So if you do have any thoughts, comments, questions, or want to rant about any of the technologies at any point, feel free to put a comment in on LinkedIn or X. We can see those comments coming in live on the control panel here behind the scenes. So we'll be able to talk to your comments. We'll be able to include some of them. If you have questions, we'll highlight them on the screen. So don't be shy. Let us know what your thinking is. And in fact, why don't we test the functionality now? So for those of you who are here, put a comment down. Let us know what your favorite technology of 2024 is. We'll let you know our own, maybe not immediately, maybe towards the end so we don't spoil it. And yeah, looking forward to having the conversation with everyone today. So why don't we start with introductions? Alex, do you want to kick us off?
Sure. Hi, everyone. Alex Rühl. I lead the immersive tech team at PwC UK, looking at all of the exciting emerging technologies, but very specifically focused for me on virtual reality and augmented reality. It's where my heart lies after 10 years of obsessing over the tech. What about you, Jeremy?
Similar to Alex, I'm Alex's counterpart in the United States, very much a specialist in immersive technology. Very excited to take it to clients in different industries all around the world, have published books on the value of VR and AR in business. And I'm very excited about the big news that, or rather not the big product that's coming out to a lot of people's doorsteps in the industry, including many of our own here in the United States this Friday. And for those who know, you know, and if you don't, then you should know. We will tell you about that soon.
Shout out.
Yeah, exactly. Shout out if you do know.
I wonder what it is. Yeah.
Over to you, Darshan.
Thanks, Jeremy. Thanks, Alex. Hi, nice to see everyone today. Darshan Chandarana, I'm a partner here in the UK. I do emerging technologies, and I live and breathe this stuff. Right, this is what I've been doing for most of my career. I've been in the technology space for about 30 years or so, and essentially reinvent myself every couple of years.
Great to have you on, Darshan. Over to you, Scott.
Hey, there's Scott Likens, live here from Austin, Texas. I lead our innovation hub in the US, and I'm our global Gen AI leader for the firm. I'm very excited to have the discussion. The Essential 8's been something that I've been involved in for about 8 years now. So excited for today.
Brilliant. So why don't we start with you, Scott? Tell us about the Essential 8. What are they? Why are they important? Let's kick off the discussion and see where we go. Maybe helped to journey through it by our audience members.
Yeah, good. So, thinking back 8 years ago within the Emerging Tech Lab, we were trying to figure out kind of where to make some investments. And, if you think 8 years ago, gosh, it was a different world. Smartphones are fairly new. Obviously, some of the technologies we found back then are still there today. We checked it every year, to be honest. And the process we took, we look at kind of what's hot out on the internet. We have some machines scrolling through the top 10 lists. We're looking at where startups are getting investment money, where the VC's going, what are the startups getting traction. Talking to our clients, we're asking clients, where are they making investments? I think back in the day, none of them were surprising, but the thought of these 8 being essential to invest was pretty groundbreaking. A lot of people were thinking they were still in the early days of the cloud, obviously data analytics, big data era, if you remember that. So when we came out with the Essential 8, I think it gave our clients and I think us a way to frame where we were going to invest in innovation. So every year we kind of checked them, and to be honest, they really didn't change. You think about artificial intelligence, been around 7 decades, so that's not surprising. But this year, as we look, there's been more momentum in some of these newer areas. So we came up with this idea that there was 2 that stood out, essential to expand: artificial intelligence, shocker, with the Gen AI wave last year, and then Internet of Things, maybe a sleeper, but the ability to kind of connect the physical and digital worlds has just continued to progress. Some of that's on the backs of new connectivity, some of that's on the backs of new batteries lasting longer. But really, there's just such a need around connecting the physical and digital worlds. Then thinking about some of my favorites, still essential to evaluate: blockchain, augmented and virtual reality, still separate, and then advanced robotics. And advanced robotics is where drones and kind of 3D printing collapsed. Those went away, and we just saw more momentum. If you're watching for these robots that are actually doing hard labor that humans are doing today, there's a lot of investment there. Virtual and augmented reality, we heard from our immersive services leaders, they continue to mature, and we see the value in that long term. And then my favorite, blockchain. We'll talk about the investment in blockchain. Take crypto out of it, all the challenges there. Blockchain continues to advance. And then finally, the experimental ones, quantum computing and neuromorphic. Trust me, neuromorphic was not an easy one to get through our firm process and get people to understand what that means. But to me, these are areas people are really starting to break some new ground. Just this week, a quantum breakthrough in China. A lot more investment, patents start skyrocketing up in these areas. I think we're seeing the change of compute right in front of our eyes. Gen AI is causing some of that. We've got to go bigger and bolder to support what we need there. Quantum's going to help us, but that's a little further out. So in the meantime, can we design new chips neuromorphically, make them work like our brain, which is going to be more effective than the silicon we have today? So essentially this year changed a little bit. We've added some pretty bold ones in there. I'm really confident those are areas our clients need to start thinking about. Limited talent pools, big investments. That's a combination for a struggle to advance these. So very exciting 2024 ahead of us, I think.
Yeah, super exciting. And for anyone that hasn't seen the kind of thought leadership that Scott's just outlined, we'll include a link in the kind of comments so you can go and check it out for yourself. But Darshan, we were talking a little bit before we jumped on live about like the importance of all 8 of these tech. I mean, AI has kind of, become the belle of the ball for the last however many months. What's your opinion on kind of which of these technologies should people be keeping an eye on the most?
I'm looking at the chat at the moment, and I can see some of my favorites coming up on there as well. Let's put this out there. Hopefully it's not too controversial, but AI is taking up a lot of oxygen at the moment, Gen AI very specifically. And what I truly believe that these essentially have to be looked at in the whole, in the round, right? So some of them will actually converge and play off each other. Some of them will come together and actually have an amplification effect. So for me, AI is kind of an enabler in a number of other areas, like IoT, for example, right? You can do some amazing things with IoT. Imagine what you can do that when you inject AI into that conversation too. Same with the mixed reality piece. I'm not going to give away the spoiler about the thing that you're talking about, Jeremy, but there's so much out there where AI is going to be embedded in these technologies. And Scott, I know you were in CES a few weeks ago. I didn't make it there. Not a big challenge for me, and really. But even the AI vacuum cleaners and stuff, right? AI is going to be baked into just about everything we do. So that's where I see things going. Essentially, yes, but AI baked into quite a lot of the different technologies.
And that's an interesting point.
I was going to say, I almost laughed at CES. Everything last year had a .ai. This year it had AI. So there was this big transformation of just kind of naming it .ai to get the buzz. But I'll tell you, even those AI vacuum cleaners, there's upside in optimizing how I clean my house. So yeah, you're seeing that transition. It's really amazing how fast it's happening.
So we've got a question coming in from Robert here, and he's correctly observed there's a lot of overlap between these technologies. Robert's in virtual reality, augmented reality, the intersections with AI for development in-game interaction, super exciting. IoT and digital twins is another great intersection. I guess the point there is, Darshan, Scott, Alex, how important is the intersection of these technologies, and what other examples have we got that show how powerful convergence is? So how these technologies are greater than just the sum of their parts.
I think on that one, I'll bring in some of the others actually, but if you look at 2 of the technologies, things like blockchain, which we've mentioned a few times already, but actually when you couple blockchain with, let's say, Web 3.0 and where that's going, I think that's a great sort of convergence of technology. Doing something in the blockchain that gives you real identity, like gives you that absolute guarantee that what you're seeing is actually real. And then the Web 3.0 of just changing the way that we use the internet. Now, if you think forward a little bit and you add AR or mixed reality on top of Web 3.0, wow, what could that actually hold, right? That would be a super cool thing. I know, Alex, you're really into that space. I mean, I'm sure you have a view on that too.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think it's really interesting that people see kind of blockchain, or, I think often people associate blockchain just with crypto, or, the NFT kind of like hype bubble of 2021, and they get kind of scared by that idea. But actually, as we're finding, there's so much utility in blockchain, and it can be used for a variety of things. I mean, just in the last kind of couple of months, we've been talking not only about how you kind of embed that into, for example, like loyalty programs in order to kind of like give more to your kind of consumers, but also from like a supply chain operational point of view. Like, really interesting. I guess my question would be on the kind of the back of that, what's stopping companies from maybe going all in on some of these other techs? I mean, I'm sure we're seeing loads of people go all in on AI now because it feels like it'd be silly not to. But what are we seeing as the kind of big hurdles that people are not jumping over when it comes to adopting some more of these slightly obvious technologies?
Maybe I'll start. I think the R word, regulation, jumps to mind, and it's not regulation holding it back. It's almost without regulation, people are holding back. If you think about specifically AI, let's start with, there's been a lack of clarity. There's a lot of questions on intellectual property. And that's where I think there's actually a tangent to blockchain. Can we actually create irrefutable understanding of IP in a blockchain so that what's generated through an AI becomes traceable? That's that Web3 concept of, deconstructing these centralized authorities and having the blockchain do that. I go back to that question, the in-game interactions. Think about the world of synthetic reality where my name, image, and likeness can be put into a game as an NPC, but a really intelligent one, right? That can be trained and looks like me. How do I authenticate? I give that permission. Blockchain could solve that. So I think the regulation has to keep up with how fast the technology is changing. And on AI, again, back to that example, there was some clarity in the US last year. EU went really, really heavy and kind of tapered it back. Globally, we have different perspectives. So that's almost, we're waiting for some regulation. Blockchain was in a similar position. Then we got a little bit more clarity. We're going to see more innovation. We don't want to over-regulate. So I think typically people think regulation is a constraint, but some guardrails, right? Whether it's a full regulation or guardrails will help us innovate faster because we need some clarity at the enterprise level. But so much activity, such a fast pace is challenging for a regulator to keep up with, let alone, we barely keep up, let alone a regulator. So I think that's part of the challenge ahead of us.
Slightly more practical view, I guess, really is just the amount of oxygen, again, going into AI, Gen AI, reskilling people, figuring out what your workforce of the future might look like. That's probably taking up a lot of mind space in people's heads at the moment, at the board level and all the way throughout. So having to deal with something so big and so impactful and then figure out where these other technologies are sitting, that's also slowing things down, I feel.
And it's such a delicate balance, right? Especially in this kind of economic climate, that balance between innovating and keeping your eye on the prize and that next kind of like thing versus what do you need to do right now to make sure that your kind of business is thriving.
I do think, though, certain industries and certain subsectors and certain companies who rely on innovation in a particular area are still investing, right? So they are doing something over and above AI. But I think that is because innovation is in their DNA. They have to do it. They have to move forward. So that's why the Essential 8 are the Essential 8, because there are people investing all of these. We've figured out, sort of the economic drivers behind some of this as well. But I do think that AI is the 300-pound gorilla. But give it, I don't know, 6 months, a year, when everything's baked into AI, then you'll see some of these other technologies sort of finding their name again, but actually with AI baked in behind the scenes.
Brilliant. Thanks for that, Darshan and Scott. And question from Dace coming in, and this one's probably one for you, Scott. What was the 9th technology of the Essential 8, i.e., what was the technology that just missed the list to make it into the Essential 8?
I don't know that I know the 9th, but like I mentioned, drones and 3D printing collapsed. There's also a big kind of philosophical debate on, is AR and VR the same thing being XR, or do we keep them separate? I have a strong perspective. They are different and valuable in different ways, but those may end up collapsing. We actually looked at about 150 macro technologies. So there's a lot of science and a little bit of art that goes into evaluating where people's heads are at. So I'd say in the top 10, we still had the drones capability now built in advanced robotics, and we looked at variations of AI. we're really more focused on this convergence topic. So the individuals coming together for a more powerful business impact. I'd have to go and look at, did we actually have a ninth that just didn't make the cut? I don't remember. It doesn't jump out at me.
Top 10 is good enough for us.
Yeah. The convergence point cannot be kind of emphasized enough. And we actually did an episode just before the winter break around quantum computing and how, that feels to most people, I mean, myself included, like this super futuristic thing that looks like something that belongs in Doctor Who that I can't quite see yet as to what the applications would be. But actually in that episode, we explored how actually it's going to revolutionize everything to do with computing. And actually you're going to need blockchain baked into that in order to kind of change the way we even handle computers. What's kind of like something you would say to someone kind of like me who sees something like quantum or neuromorphic and thinks, wow, that's like so far away. Like, should we really be thinking about this?
Yes.
Yes.
First things first, though, I love the fact that you did a Doctor Who reference, not a Star Trek or a Star Wars one. So well done for that. Hey, look, from a quantum perspective, from some of the other technologies perspective, take a half a step back. So you've got quantum going on at the moment, which might feel a bit futuristic, might feel a bit, sort of way out there. But if you look at the small steps that are going on a daily basis, Scott, you were talking just a few minutes ago, you'll come in about the breakthroughs just in China this week. But actually, there's a whole change in cloud computing and the physical technology you need to run the cloud as well to make this AI stuff work, to make quantum work and other things. You're going to speak much more eloquently than me about this, Scott, but just the fact that everyone now seems to be announcing chip new designs, Microsoft are in the chip space, Amazon are in the chip space, NVIDIA are there or thereabouts. Then you've got, a bunch of things like GPUs are going to go away and there's going to be sort of AI PUs coming out, so I think that there's a lot of movement in small steps to make sure that the thing that you think is a big step is actually not that far away.
Yeah, and I think that's an important point to note. It's, we talk about the essential 8 and these are really important technologies, but there are other far more boring technologies like cloud computing that are underpinning everything, including the essential 8.
Some of our colleagues just shrieked.
I know, boring.
It's okay. They're the ones telling me that, so they'll be all right if I use the word.
But it's something, right, that we consider technologies that are like business as usual to be boring, right? Like I feel like my smartphone is pretty boring at this point, even though I'm absolutely codependent on it and live my life through it. So actually, there's quite a merit to technologies becoming boring. But that is true, again, everything is built on top of that infrastructure, right? And I think, especially from like an industry point of view, I feel like what I'm seeing, especially when it comes to the immersive technology side, is people want to kind of run before they can walk. So you've got people that don't know how to kind of get into it at all, and people that want to like jump straight into doing a huge rollout but don't have their basics, their data kind of in line, their kind of their cloud infrastructure in place. What's something else that you're kind of like seeing with out there with clients that you would tell them, you need to be looking at this stuff, but actually here's just the 101 of things you need to consider before you start to kind of properly ramp up expanding into these technologies?
Maybe one that jumps to mind first off, I don't think cloud's boring. I think there's still a lot to do there. But we've been at it a long time. We've been at it a decade. Maybe we almost get complacent a little bit. The same thing for data. We've had the era of big data for how long? About 10 years. And it's been necessary, but a little bit evil. It's just kind of gathered a bunch of bad data to some degree. So if we really want to kind of expand and excel our AI journey, we have to have a good proprietary intellectual property, whether it's in structured or unstructured data. So having a really good strategy there to feed into these large language models. I always joke, you shouldn't ask them a question for an answer. You should use them to do something like summarize an answer you get out of your proprietary information and use that combination. And that requires a lot of effort around the data and the intellectual property you have as an organization, no matter what sector you're in. So I think that's why we're seeing a lot of the legal questions, a lot of the investment and emphasis on that combination of AI and data, and that requires the cloud. And to Darshan's point, I think the race to Gen AI, it actually gave a little bit of a view into some deficiencies in the cloud. It's not infinite. There's only so many GPUs in the cloud. We just thought it was as many as we'd ever need, and it's not. So now we're seeing other innovation happen to create better compute, which is better for the environment, and it's better for AI, and it's going to take us to that next leap. So I think it's that, again, those convergence, it's not one thing on its own. It's all coming together quite nicely. And again, going back to the Essential 8 in 2016, we had all of these technologies 8 years ago, and everyone said, well, I don't need VR, I don't need AR and blockchain. What is that? Some of this has to be a vision for the future we march towards, and building the talent and building the strategy and building the business case. And it takes time. Some of them are no-brainers. AI is here. We know it. We see it. IoT is here. We know it. We see it. Let's go. That's why we kind of segmented them off into expand all the way to experiment.
Yeah, and let's be honest. 8 years ago, people probably said, "Who needs AI?" In our business.
Quite honestly, we were just worried about big data, right? Analytics was the term, not AI. There was AI, but it was more broadly analytics. So you're right.
And here's an interesting question from one of our audience members on LinkedIn. What about biotechnology? How come that is not the list? Is that because we've looked at this from a very B2B sense, and biotech is, at least in many places, B2C? Is it because we have somehow incorporated biotech into some of those essentially like neuromorphic computing? We'd love to get your view, Scott.
Yeah, so there's aspects, so biotech being a pretty broad category, aspects in the list. I think as you look about broad applicability, some of them are just very specific, but the technologies behind them. So if you think about quantum molecular unfolding or folding, so looking at ways to leverage quantum to actually break through some of the challenges we have in basically drug development, in DNA understanding, and all the way across that biotech realm, there's building blocks in the 8. I think biotech itself has amazing innovation happening. The other one I'll throw out there is space tech. There's actually quite a bit around space tech happening right now. That just didn't fit the broad applicability of the 8, right? You got to get down to 8. We need to apply across sectors, across different levels and sizes of business. So there were aspects in there, but they just didn't even make the soft 10, as I think as you called it.
The soft 10. So, I mean, the majority of this conversation, obviously, we're focusing on these technologies that are either just about here or kind of like coming. But what about, technologies of the past that maybe were on the list, have been adopted? What about ones that maybe would have been considered an essential 8, but actually, made some key mistakes that led to them kind of like falling by the wayside? What can we learn from the kind of M tech of the past? Darshan, maybe start with you.
I think part of that is, not every single one of these 8 is going to flourish and, become a blooming flower, right? So this is what we're looking at today. And in the past, we looked at other things, and there were technologies that kind of just became mainstream. When 4G first came out, when 5G first came out, there's so much hype around that, and it's just now BAU, right? It became BAU very, very quickly. There are other technologies, and Scott mentioned it. 3D printing, that was going to be the next big thing, wasn't it, really? With 3D printing and sort of the ability to send an image to someone and have them print it out somewhere else, it's kind of fallen by the wayside because the technology just hasn't kept up with the imagination. So part of this is understanding what's possible with these types of technologies and making sure that they have right business use cases and have a societal impact. And then the second part is actually, do you know what? Don't get tied to anything too much, because things evolve, and they should evolve. And what we understand today about quantum might actually change in a year's time, but it might turn into something that's absolutely applicable to all our industries.
We have we talked a lot about the advantages of these technologies, their uses, the positive aspects. What about the not so positive view of these technologies? Because we're getting some questions here. There's one from Robert about the threat of AI fakes and blockchain's potential to help solve this problem. And there's an interesting sub-point within there around convergence again that we're going back to all the time. But Darshan and Scott, what are your views on issues like that erode trust in the technology?
Scott, do you want to go first?
Yeah, there's a brilliant professor out of Oxford that on stage one day said, speed is the enemy of trust. So I think some of this is just inherently the speed at which some of these are evolving. So that we've always had trust issues. I hate to date myself, but I worked on some of the first browser on the internet. There was trust issues selling things online until the credit cards came in and said, hey, if you get ripped off, we'll make you whole. It wasn't about us trusting the internet. It was us having a guarantee. So, the escrow system, which was eBay, that turned into PayPal. There's many examples of technology being a part of building that trust. So I think it's inherent. I think it's the pace of these things happening. I see another question around blockchain and quantum. Aren't they at odds? A little bit, because quantum cryptography is a existential threat. Our entire effectively financial world and personal information world is based on a time-based security mechanism. It'll take you too long to break this. It won't be worth anything. Well, quantum changes that over basically instantly. But in the same realm, if we think about these things, and we are thinking about quantum and experimenting, we can build the guardrails in now. So that combination of AI and blockchain and IoT automating trust so that we can, have some, responsibility in what we're building using both technology and humans. I think it's inherent that we do that now. And the pace is what I think is the big thing. And none of these technologies is different than other ones 10 and 15 and 20 years ago. They're happening faster. And I think we're breaking through this Moore's Law world, and that's uncomfortable for us as humans. So we got to do the right thing and build responsibility in now so that we can all live in a world we want to live in later, which, is something I worry about every day.
Agreed. And for those who are interested on the subject of quantum, if you are interested in digging into that a little bit deeper, our last Tech Talk, episode 8, actually talks specifically about quantum computing, because there's a lot of, it's an unknown to a lot of people. It's a very interesting subject. And Alex and I learned a lot from digging deep into that area. So that's good fun. Check that out if you want. Sorry, Darshan, did I interrupt you? Did you want to say something?
No, it's just on that sort of trusting technology and being responsible. For a technology conversation, I'm actually going to bring in the human element here. There is an element on us, on every single one of us, technologists, every single person in society. Technology will only do what we want it to do, essentially. So we have that responsibility. We do need to make sure that we do play that up, and we understand what responsible AI means, for example. But actually, forget 10 or 15 years ago, when cars came in, right? You had to have a man standing in front of it, and it was a man, who was standing in front of the car with his little flag to say, there's a car coming, get out of the way, right? So society moves on. We adapt, we overcome, we embrace in certain cases. And I think that's just a human trait that we have. Think about responsibility, think about what you want to do. Like Scott said, think about the world you want to live in and where your kids might want to live in. But actually, technology usually in the hands of the right people does the right thing most of the time,
and makes our lives overall better in the scheme of history. So we're coming close to time. Curious to hear final thoughts from either of you about anything that you're excited about in this field. Any profound thoughts that you have to leave our audience with?
Why don't I kick off, because I noticed someone on LinkedIn was also asking about specific use cases and, what are our favorite applications for these technologies. And for me, actually, being a big proponent and champion of immersive tech like virtual reality and augmented reality, I keep getting asked the question, what is the killer use case? Are we seeing a killer use case yet? And in all honesty, that's the wrong question to be asking. It's not about a killer use case. The bottleneck here to mainstream adoption is the user experience of the technology, how easy it is to use, how seamless it is to use. So in 2024, relating to the release of this very exciting product on Friday, I am excited to see an improved user experience with virtual reality and augmented reality, or shall we call it spatial computing technology.
Nice. Darshan, what about you?
I'm just excited by the fact that there's so much innovation going on right now. There's so much. Honestly, I've been in this tech space for a very, very long time, and I saw middleware, and then I saw big data, and then I saw cloud compute. But it's just the sheer number of things that are happening right now, and that's what I find exciting. Is I'm fickle. I like lots of little things. So having 8 is great, and having 10 is better.
Scott, what about you?
Similar to Darshan. I feel like we're in the midst of another breakthrough. And from the beginning of the internet, I think we stagnated a little bit. We centralized a lot. We grew, but it was kind of that small incremental growth. I think we're at the kind of the beginnings of another breakthrough, whether it's in quantum and neuromorphic or this synthetic reality that we're seeing, be able to make our lives better with technology in a grand scale versus small incremental changes. And I know there's certain device being released. Like, let's hope it takes us up a notch, right? So I'm excited about the future. We need to do it right, but big things happening. Good 2024.
Yeah, what a way to kick off. I'm just going to say ditto to everything that you all said. Jeremy, bring us home.
So thank you, Alex. And Darshan and Scott, it's been a real pleasure. To our audience who are kind enough to engage us with a lot of exciting comments and questions, we really appreciate it again and again. So thank you for joining us each month. Our next Tech Talk will happen in February, the subject of which we'll announce on LinkedIn in the next week or two. So we look forward to seeing you there. See you next time, everyone. Bye-bye.
Thanks all. Bye-bye.